Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie. Today's video is going to be another updated makeup review. So this one is for August/September, all of the products I tried in that period. I've got slightly less than I had in the last updated makeup review, which is good because I don't want to spend as long talking. Got a bit of a headache, not gonna lie, but let's see how fast I can whiz through this without losing the will to live like I normally do when I film these. Basically all of these products are from like first impressions videos and things like that. I'll put cards up for all of the videos that these products are from. So obviously I've had like about 2-3 more months with those products now, so I've got like updated thoughts on them. I just like to do these because I feel like you can't get someone's full opinion on a product just from a first impression. I feel like you need time with things, you know. So let's get started with primers. So I did try 2 primers. So one of these is the Barrier Matte Glass Gloss Illuminating Serum. The second one is the Soap and Glory Glow and Dew It Skin Illuminating Base. I did actually mix these both together today and use them as a primer. So the Barrier one, I feel like it's quite skincare-y. It does just feel like a serum more so than a primer. I mean, it is literally called an illuminating serum, so that kind of makes sense, but it does give your skin that sort of glossy, dewy look. So it's more of like a transparent dew necessarily than like a shimmery dew, which I feel like generally I do prefer a more like shimmery dew as opposed to like a transparent one, because it's just like another skincare step is how it strikes me. I mean, it's good at what it does. It also smells incredible. It smells amazing. It smells like sweets. It smells like fruit. Amazing. I mean, I'd rather have it on my skin than not have it on my skin. See, even though it is dewy, it doesn't like, you know, make your like foundation or anything like that like super oily or anything, which is good because I'm not a fan of a super oily finish personally. So it's not like an overkill of like dew and oil or anything. So I think it is nice. It is good at what it is, but it's not necessarily something that I can't live without in my makeup routine. Soap and Glory one is more like a shimmery sort of primer. It's not like a serum like the other one. The colour is like a bit dark for me. It's sort of a rose gold colour. I have to apply it like a really like sparing amount for it not to kind of just make me look a bit dark and just like my face look like a different colour. It's a bit weird. So for that reason I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like if this was just like a more sort of like pearly silvery sort of colour, I feel like I'd like it a lot more because it is good at what it does, but it's just the shade doesn't really like the best of me. I also feel like you have to blend it quite quickly or it can go like a little bit patchy looking, and that's another thing that's a bit about it. Again, I'd like this a lot more if it was in a lighter shade, and it is, I think it only just come in this one shade. So I'm not the biggest fan of it. I have used it a few times. I can get it to work if I just apply it a certain specific way, but I feel like I could live without this in my makeup collection. But maybe if you've got like a more sort of medium skin tone, you might get along with it a bit better. Moving on to foundation, there were 2 foundations I tried in August and September. So I've got the B, which is Superdrug's own brand. I got their Filter Finish foundation. This is in the shade 1, I believe. And I also got the Urban Decay Stay Naked Weightless Liquid Concealer, this one here. I have filmed wear tests for both of these. To be fair, I think both of them wore pretty well actually. I'll talk about the Urban Decay one first. So I have got this one on today. See, I actually find that both of these foundations are quite similar actually. If you're looking maybe for a dupe for this, I would perhaps try that B one because it's a lot cheaper. Obviously I'm pretty sure you can only get B in the UK though, so I don't think it's international, whereas Urban Decay you can get bloody everywhere. I think this one's in the shade 10 WY. It is actually like a tiny bit too light for me, but I can work with it pretty easily. I remember the All Nighter foundation by Urban Decay. I found like the light shade of that like oxidized really badly, but I don't feel like this shade has any oxidization, so I feel like in terms of shade ranges they have improved with this guy, but obviously I can't speak for the deeper end of the spectrum. This foundation, I would say it is more of a matte finish, but it's not like a really like dry, like flat matte. It's like got a little bit of like, you know, life in it, but I'd say it's more on the matte side. I would say it's quite light coverage, which is the one thing that I'm not the biggest fan of about this. I just wish it had a little bit more coverage. I'd describe it as probably like a light medium coverage, a little bit buildable, but you're not going to get like a full coverage look with this, which, I mean, I wouldn't mind it if it was like more of a medium to high medium, but it's just, I feel like light coverage is something that I generally don't really go for, especially because over the last few months with maths and everything, my skin is just really it's just gone through it. I've got a lot of blemishes right now, so I'm kind of like need a bit of coverage really from my base products. So yeah, it does have a really nice finish. I like the finish a lot. I just wish it had a bit more coverage. That's literally my only fault with this, but I feel like it is a perfect foundation on a day where I do want something a bit more like lightweight on my skin. It's definitely very lightweight foundation. It also wore pretty damn good. I will insert that wear test now that I did. Okay, so I've had the Urban Decay Stay Naked foundation on. I wanted to leave it on a bit longer than I did, but I'm in a really bad mood. I've got this weird rash on my face at the moment, so like not being able to just scratch my face all day has been very irritating for me. So I've had it on for like a little bit under 7 hours. So it's been on my face for a decent amount of time, enough to test the wear I think, but normally I'd leave it for 8 hours, but I've got a rash on my face, so give me a break. So I have to say, just from first impressions, I feel like it's worn really well. It doesn't look very dissimilar to how it looked when I first put it on. I definitely think the wear is pretty good with this one. So let's just analyse it a bit more. So looking at my forehead. See, I don't want to talk about like texture too much because I've got quite textured skin at the moment because as I said, I've got a bit of a rash. But like, so like I do have like some bumps, but these bumps were there from the beginning, so it's not really anything to do with the wear. I can sort of see like a little bit of sort of oil and a little bit of like sinking into these little squinty lines I have on my forehead, but only a really small amount. I feel like most foundations do it way worse. So I feel like in terms of forehead, that's held up really well. And forehead wear is especially important to me because when I'm at work, I basically only put base makeup on my forehead and like my eye area anyway, because of masks. So these whole bits of my face here look pretty decent, barely any different to how they looked when I first put the foundation on. My chin is, again, pretty good, and my chin tends to be like a bit of a bad area for wear, but a little bit of sinking and like dots where my little chin line is, but this tends to happen a lot because, I mean, if you've got a line on your face, things do just naturally kind of sink in it and texturize or whatever. I feel like it's barely any breakage at all though, just like a tiny bit on my chin, but really not at all. So I have to say that this is a really good wearing foundation, definitely. Yeah, so this literally has got everything that I want except coverage. Like, it excels in everything except coverage. I just need a bit more coverage with this guy, and then I would absolutely be raving the roof about this. But unfortunately that's where it lets me down. I'm so happy I have it in my collection because there obviously will be days where I do want something a bit more lightweight. Generally I do prefer a more full coverage look, but I feel like there are occasions where you do want something a bit more natural on your skin, a bit more lightweight. So the B foundation, like I said, I do feel like this is quite similar. It is more light coverage. I would say perhaps like a tiny bit more coverage than the Urban Decay one, but not much. It is still more of a light medium sort of coverage foundation. Again, it has got a really nice finish, more on the matte side, quite lightweight, not too heavy. I feel like I'm just describing the Urban Decay foundation. I feel like this is actually a pretty good dupe for it, to be honest. The shade one I have is a little bit too pale for me. Can make it work, but maybe I should have gotten the number 2 shade instead, possibly. Also wore pretty well. I will insert that wear test now. Okay, so I've had the B foundation on for about 7 hours. I wanted to do it like the same time I did the Urban Decay one, just so it's fair. Use like the same concealer and powder with each one. So let's get a look. So looking at my forehead, I don't feel like there's really much wear and tear at all there. Looks pretty good. Maybe like a tiny bit shiny, maybe? But really I can't see much breakage. It is in my little squinty lines a bit, but barely at all. And normally it's quite bad, those lines, so that's pretty impressive actually. These parts of my face seem fine. It definitely has got in my like smile lines quite a bit worse than the Urban Decay one, I would say. A little bit of texture, a little bit of breakage on the chin. Obviously settled into that line a bit, but not too bad. Yeah, actually I feel like it's worn like pretty decently. I feel like it does look a little bit like textured maybe in places. I mean, it's like a little bit grainy looking, so it's not perfect. And obviously it has settled into my lines and broken down quite a bit, which is a little bit annoying. But overall I'd say that this is a decent wearing foundation, definitely. So that is pretty good. I feel like in terms of wear, it's pretty similar to the Urban Decay. Maybe the Urban Decay is slightly better, I would say, but only like just. But yeah, overall I think not a bad wearing foundation. Yeah, I pretty much have the same thoughts on both of these really. They're like good lightweight options, they work, they do the job. It's just, if you're after some coverage, these don't really excel in terms of coverage, but they're both good foundations. I like them. I feel like it's the sort of thing where I'd need to have like a further coverage concealer with it to get like the full look. So concealers, I did get the accompanying Urban Decay foundation, the Stay Naked Correcting Concealer. I also got the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Concealer, which is in Fair Beige. So I got the Nip and Fab concealer. I also brought the Maybelline Instant Anti-Age Eraser. I have tried this before in the past, but I re-brought one because I did a one brand Maybelline look. I think I did that in August. Might have been September. Who knows? What day is it? What month is it? I don't know. What's going on? Okay, so the Maybelline one, as you can see, pretty much used this all. I feel that's the one thing that annoys me about this is I feel like it goes really quick, and I do feel like the applicator, like I don't mind the applicator like the way, but I do find, I don't know if you can see, but it's like the sponge is sort of like kind of unglued a bit, and a lot of the product sort of gathered at the bottom instead of like going to the top like it's supposed to. So I feel like a lot of product might have gotten wasted that way. But when you can get stuff out of this, I do actually really like this. This is actually really nice concealer. It's got pretty decent coverage. It's not like full-blown like Tarte Shape Tape Elf Camo concealer coverage, but it's like quite close. It's like definitely like a high medium sort of coverage. It does do a decent job when it comes to coverage. A shade I've got, I think, is, what shade are you? 00 Ivory. The shade does work really well. It's more of a warm toned shade, but it's pretty pale. I actually do like this concealer quite a lot. I'm just not sure I'm the biggest fan of the applicator, and I feel like it just runs out quite fast, which is a bit annoying. I just like my concealers to last a little bit longer than this one does. It's a good concealer. I understand why a lot of people do really like this because it does get quite good reviews, and I do really like it. It's a pretty good concealer, to be honest. It's got a nice finish. I would say it's probably more of a matte sort of concealer, but it's not super drying. So the Urban Decay one, again, this has got really good coverage actually. I do quite like this concealer. Just like with the Maybelline one, I wouldn't put it quite on like the Tarte Shape Tape Elf Camo level, but it's pretty close, pretty damn good coverage really. The shade's pretty good. This one is in 10 double and it works pretty well. Little bit on the dry side. I would say this one's more dry than the Maybelline one. So I prefer how it looks like over foundation as opposed to bare skin. It can look a bit dry just on bare skin, but it isn't a bad concealer. I quite like it, but I feel like if you had got quite dry skin, you might not get along with this so well. I like it, but I don't think it's going to be like a new favourite just because it is a tiny bit dry and because I found concealers are a tiny bit more coverage, but it isn't bad at all. So I'd happily keep using it. This Wet n Wild one, this is super cheap, but it's actually really not bad at all. It does have a really like weird sort of smell though, quite similar to like the foundation that they have, which also has a weird smell. The shade I feel like is a tiny bit like pink, which I generally prefer a more warmer tone. It is a tiny bit pink, so it's not the perfect shade to me, but it's quite fair, definitely. This isn't a bad concealer. It does have pretty decent coverage. Again, I'd say it's pretty similar to like the Maybelline one. It's not super duper full coverage, but it's pretty decent considering how cheap it is. Decent finish, not too dry, not too oily, pretty good. It's actually a nice little hidden gem concealer. I think the only thing that puts me off it is I feel like I prefer like a sort of bigger doe foot. I feel like it takes quite a lot to build up the amount of concealer that you want. And also the shade's just a little bit of an off undertone for me, but overall I do quite like this. I think this is a hidden gem, so I would give this a go if you can find a shade that works, but I'm pretty sure they have like 5 shades or something ridiculous. They might have more in the US possibly. The Nip and Fab one, I probably said this is my least favourite out of the bunch of them. This one does disperse a lot of product. It's got quite a good doe foot. It really does like give you a lot of product. However, it doesn't really have that good coverage, to be honest, even with all of that additional product on it. The shade I think is 01. It's a tiny bit too dark. I did mean to get the white concealer that goes with it, but for some reason something happened in my order and I ended up with the terracotta shade instead. So I can make the shade work though, but I mean the finish is, I would say, probably a bit more of an oilier concealer than a matte one, definitely. The finish is okay. It's not super heavy looking, as you know. It looks fine, the finish, but it's just this really doesn't have the sort of coverage I want. I am more of a full coverage concealer person. That is what I like from a concealer, and it's just, it doesn't really do it. Maybe if you aren't into full coverage you might like it, but I feel like there are better options out there if you want a little bit less coverage. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this Nip and Fab one. Okay, setting powders. So I've got the Sleek Face Form Baking and Setting Powder in the shade Light. I've got the number 7 Perfect Light Loose Powder in Translucent. I brought the Flower Beauty Miracle Matte Universal Finishing Powder, which is a white pressed powder. And I also got the Bee Baking Powder. I got the shade Light. I did also get the translucent one, but it seems to have completely disappeared. I have no idea where it went, but I feel like that's okay because I did generally reach for the light shade more. I preferred the light one. I'll talk about this guy first actually. I have got this one on my skin today. I have to say I do actually quite like this powder. It's one of those powders that does actually have like a bit of a glow to it. Like not a really like heavy, like overwhelming glow, but just sort of a subtle glow, which is quite nice. I do quite like that in a powder. I don't find there's any weird patchiness or separation with it. I feel like it mattifies like pretty well. It's got a decent finish. It's not a super like airbrushed, like flawless blurring, blah 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 powder. It's not quite on that level. I have got some powders that I feel like just look a bit more flawless than this one. But overall, like it's a decent like lightweight powder that gives you a bit of glow. And you know, it doesn't like do anything unflattering. It doesn't settle weirdly. So it's actually a pretty decent powder. The shade is Light, and I do find that actually does work for me. See, I feel like it might look a bit dark, but I find that it works pretty well. It's got more of a sort of yellowy tone to it. So if you've got like fairer skin that's perhaps more warm toned, I do feel like it does work. But obviously if your skin's lighter than mine, maybe it wouldn't. But I find that it actually does work pretty well for me, the shade, because I was skeptical when I first saw it. But obviously there is a translucent one as well. So I did use a translucent one a few times and I did like it as well, but I just felt like I just prefer generally when it does have a bit of a colour tint, because I feel like it's a bit more sort of like, it just looks like your skin more. It's a bit more natural looking, whereas I feel like sometimes translucent powders can leave like a bit of a like sort of residue to them. Not all of them, but some of them can. So yeah, this is actually a pretty decent powder. I would recommend giving it a go. It's a good affordable option, definitely. The only criticism I have on it is that it doesn't make you look airbrushed and flawless and all of this stuff, but it does a pretty decent job. And I feel like I've only found like a couple powders that actually do that anyway. You know, like Laura Mercier, that sort of thing. So this number 7 one. So this is a translucent shade, and when I first saw it, I did think, oh, that looks a bit like orangey. But I actually find that it's like a little bit pinky almost, but it does come out really fair. In fact, sometimes it actually makes me look like lighter than my neck. So it does work for pale skin, but I do feel like it makes me look a little bit pinker, and I don't really want to look a bit pinker, but it's only like a subtle sort of amount. I can still sort of get away with how it looks. Again, I do actually really like this powder. Same thing, there's no sort of separation under my eyes. It doesn't settle weirdly anywhere else on my face. Has got pretty nice finish, pretty lightweight. I do quite like it. But again, just like the B one, I don't feel like it's got that flawless blurring finish, but that's fine. But that's absolutely fine. But I do think this is actually a really decent powder that you should give a go if you've got number 7 where you live. I feel that if you've got fair skin that perhaps is a little bit more neutral, a little bit more pink, then this probably would suit you perfectly. For me, I do find it looks like a tiny bit off, but it is suitable for pale skin. Now this Sleek one, see, I actually felt like this did kind of have that sort of flawless airbrushed finish that I've just been banging on about. I feel like this actually did do that, and again, it didn't like separate under my eyes. I do feel like it even had like a little bit of coverage to it, which is nice. The only thing is though, the shade makes me look orange. It just doesn't work for me. The only way I could possibly get this to work is if I had a really pale foundation on, which to be fair, I do have a few foundations that are quite pale for me, so there are a few occasions where I could perhaps use it and get away with it, but it is just disappointing. The shade is Light, probably already mentioned that. It comes in about 4 shades, so they need some more shades, or like a translucent one maybe. I don't know if you'll be able to see from that, but it's just really, really orangey. And it's such a shame, because otherwise it's actually a really good powder, and I really like it. And if this shade worked for me, I definitely would be raving about it, because I think it has actually got like a quite flawless finish, to be honest. And additional coverage, which I love from a powder. So that is such a shame, because shades just don't work for me. So this Flower Beauty one, so it's just a white pressed powder. I feel like I used it a lot to like set my eyeshadow when I was doing like eye makeup, and I used it a lot. I used it a lot at work, because when I'm at work lately, I've just sort of been doing like the top half of my face, like in terms of base makeup, so I'd use this a lot to set down. I have used it a couple times all over to set down, and it's fine. It works okay. A little bit sort of like grainy looking. It's definitely not like an amazing finished powder or anything. Like, it works, it mattifies, it's fine. I just don't feel like it's the most flattering finish on the face. But it works, it's okay, but I wouldn't repurchase it. Definitely not. But it's an okay powder. Okay, bronzers, I tried 4. I got another Sleek product. So this is their, I think it's called their Face Form bronzer. It's in the shade, literally, it looks like this. I got the Milani Baked bronzer in the shade Dulce, which looks like this. Got this one on today. I got the Maybelline City bronzer in the shade 100, the lightest shade. I have tried this bronzer before. I think it was either last year or the year before, but it was in like the medium shade, because for some reason in the UK we don't have this lighter shade, but I did manage to find it on eBay, and I just needed a bronzer for my One Brand Maybelline look. So I tried the formula before, but I got a shade which suits me a lot better, but we'll talk about that in a second. And the last bronzer I got was the Flower Beauty Heatwave Luminous bronzer, which looks like this. It comes in 2 different shades. Okay, so I'll go back to the Maybelline one. So yeah, this shade, which is the lightest one, 100, I feel like this suits me so much better, and it is a really good bronzer. So if you can get it, definitely get it. If you've got fair skin, it works fantastically. Just gives you that really like chiseled look. It just blends out beautifully. It doesn't look too harsh. There's no patchiness, no streakiness, no muddiness. It's got a bit more of like a yellow sort of tone to it, which I really like in a bronzer. I just really like bronzers that are pale, obviously, but have a sort of like yellowy, kind of caramelly tone. Or I do like more neutral toned ones as well, but anything that's like a bit red and a bit muddy looking, I generally not the biggest fan of. But this is an amazing bronzer. If you can get it, definitely get it. I really, really like it. Milani one, which is the one I'm wearing today, also really like this one too. The shade works really good. Like I said, this is a bit more of like a sort of caramelly, yellow based sort of tone to it, which, like I just said, I really like that in bronzers. It's also a more glowy one, so obviously the Maybelline one was a matte one, so you get more of a chiseled look from it, whereas this one you get more of like a sort of sun-kissed, beachy sort of look from it, which is really nice, and I really like that too. I like matte bronzers and I like glowy bronzers. Great formula, blends out super well, not too harsh, not too pigmented. Really like this one, another great bronzer in my collection. I'm building up quite a lot of really good bronzers that I like now, because I used to really struggle to find ones that worked for my skin tone, and now I've just found like loads that work really well, which is great. The Flower Beauty one, like, I kind of have mixed thoughts on this. I feel like I can get away with the shade, but I do feel like it pulls a bit orangey and not like the most flattering shade for me. The formula of it is absolutely fine. It has got a bit of a glow to it, like it blends out fine. It's not too harsh, but I do just find the tone of it isn't the most complimentary to my skin tone. It's definitely usable, like I don't look like odd when I use it or anything, but it's just I prefer the shade of the Milani and the Maybelline ones personally. But the formula of it is pretty good, so maybe if your skin is just like a tiny bit deeper than mine, it would work. The Sleek one, I just find that the shade really didn't work for me. I got the shade literally, which I'm pretty sure is the lightest one. I think there's 4 shades overall, which, to be fair, 4 shades, you need a bit more than that really with bronzers, definitely. I just found this like a bit too deep, a bit too reddish on me. Again, there was absolutely nothing wrong with the formula of it, like it blended out perfectly fine. I imagine if you can get a shade of this, that would be really good, really chiseling, like a perfect bronzer, but I just found this pulled really red on me and it just didn't flatter me at all. The tone of it just didn't work for my skin tone, but if you can get a shade, I do think it's a good formula, definitely. So I tried 2 blushes. So I got the Flower Beauty powder blush in the shade Sweet Pea. It's sort of kind of like a mauvey toned, a bit cool toned blush. Absolutely love the shade of it though, it's gorgeous. And I also got the Milani Baked blusher in the shade Dulce Pink. This is more of a glowy one. The Flower Beauty one is obviously a more matte one. Got this one on today. I actually really like both of these blushes. I think they're like perfect. They're just very subtle, very buildable formulas. They don't come out super harsh and super pigmented to make you look like a clown. They're just really buildable. The tones I find are really flattering for my skin tone. Obviously, if I want a more sort of glowy kind of look, I'd go for the Milani one, whereas if I wanted a more like matte look, I'd go with the Flower Beauty one, but they both work great. I think I like the colour of the Flower Beauty one a bit more, just because I feel like it's a bit more of a unique sort of colour. with the sort of like kind of mauviness to it. This one's a bit more like a hot pink sort of colour, but I do like both of them. I've not really got any like complaints about these. They work like perfectly. I like them both a lot. Highlighters, I got two. So I've got the Maybelline Face Studio Chrome Extreme, which is in the shade 200 Diamond Glow. I also got a highlight from Morphe, but if you watched the video where I first tried this, it arrived smashed. It's still hella smashed. I couldn't be bothered to fix it and put it back together, but I did use it like loose a few times. So it's a high impact highlighter and it's in the shade Lit, which is a sort of goldy one. It's like a hot damn mess, but I did manage to use it in a sort of loose way. Quite an intense sort of yellow hue to it, which I don't know, maybe a little bit too intense for me, but if you're into those kind of out there shades, I think you'd probably like it. The formula is absolutely fine. Obviously I would have liked to have tried it, you know, how it's supposed to come. It's supposed to smash, like, but it is a nice highlighter. It's good, it's pigmented and everything, but I'm just not sure the shade is the best for me. So the Maybelline one, I do really like the shade of this. It's sort of like a silvery kind of, it's a sort of silvery, champagne-y sort of colour. Works great. It's pretty pigmented. I have got it on today. The only thing I'd say about this one is if you have quite textured skin, which I have been having a bit of texture recently because I had a bit of an allergic reaction to something, I feel like it does emphasize texture a bit. It's not like a very, like, it's not a very smoothing highlighter. So if you've got very textured skin, I wouldn't necessarily go for this one. But it is really pretty, quite pigmented. I don't think it's going to be a new favourite for me, just because I feel like I have ones that look a bit, you know, more softer, but still like pigmented. So it's not really a favourite, but I don't mind it. Like, it's an okay highlighter. And the shade works great, but I don't know, it's just, I have better ones, I think. Okay, so moving on to brows, I tried 3 gels. So I've got the Rude Cosmetics Eyebrow Gel Mascara, I've got the B Superdrug Brow Gel, and I've got the Maybelline Brow Fast Sculpt Gel Mascara. So I used the Maybelline one today. I'm not the biggest fan of this Maybelline one. Like, I can get it to sort of work if I wipe off a lot of the excess, then it sort of turns out okay, but you have to do a lot of wiping. The shade works fine. There's just a lot of excess product on it. The wand is okay. I prefer it to be like a bit like thinner. It's quite like chunky. Like, it's small but it's chunky, and it just picks up like a lot of product on it. But the actual like gel itself is good. Like, it works. It does the job without like being too pigmented and too much, but it's just, if you're not going to wipe the excess off, it is going to look splodgy and look too pigmented and a mess. So I'm not the biggest fan of it. The Rude Cosmetics one I just really didn't like at all. This is so pigmented. Just way too pigmented, just way too splodgy. The brush is just really big and it just picks up so much product on it. It's just, there's no way you can get a nice, neat brow with this without it just splodging and looking like you're a wolf. Not really for me, that one. Not a big fan. The B one, I sort of have mixed thoughts on it because it is quite a natural brow gel, which I like. I prefer a more natural brow. The ones could just be like a bit like kind of hard to use. Like, it's really thin, which I really like, and it's really small, which I like. I just wish it was sort of like half the size that it is, because it's quite long, which makes it a bit difficult to sort of, like, you'd be brushing it here, but then you'd be getting it like at another place of your brow that you're not trying to get it at that moment, so it's just a bit hard to sort of build it up without kind of it being a bit messy, if you get what I mean. But it's definitely usable and it's not bad. Obviously I have got some issues with it, but I could use it and I like the effect that it did give. It's just the ones though, really, so I don't think I'd buy it again. But it is usable. Like, I would carry on using it. It's better than the other two, I would say. I did also get 2 micro brow pencils. So I got the Sleek Micro Fine Brow Pencil, and I also got the Rimmel, what are you called? The Rimmel Brow Pro Micro Ultra Fine Precision Pencil. God, that's a long name. I think they're both in the shade dark brown. They're both pretty similar, like there's not really much to differentiate here with them. They both kind of work the same. They do the job, they're not too harsh looking. They come out quite soft, quite diffused. They blend out with the spoolie well. They do the job. I could use them like with the gel to just define more, or I could just use them by themselves to fill in my whole brow. I think they're both actually pretty decent. I've not really got much to complain about them. I have brow pencils that I like a little bit more because they're a little bit like the actual product itself is a bit softer, but I really not got much to complain about. Shades also work really good. They kind of match my natural brow hair pretty decently. So these are actually pretty good micro brow pencils. I'd recommend giving them a go. They work. They do the job fine. They're not flimsy. They don't snap really easily. So yeah, both pretty good. Very similar as well. There isn't much that I could really... I literally at one point tried them side by side with clear gel just to see if there was anything I could notice that was different, and there really wasn't anything that I could notice. So so I got two black eyeliners for the waterline. So I got the Morphe eyeliner pencil, which the name is probably, yep, it's disappeared because I've sharpened it so much. I do feel like I had quite a few issues sharpening this. It could go a bit dodgy when I do it. And then I also had the Flower Beauty Forever Wear Longwear eyeliner, which is a twisty up eyeliner pencil. This Flower Beauty one disappeared so fast, there's literally nothing in it. So it's actually been like a while since I've properly used it because it ran out so fast. So I don't even remember everything about it. Like, I do remember that it was pigmented and it applied super nicely, super smoothly. It wasn't uncomfortable to apply. It didn't have the best wear though. I do feel like it faded quite a bit by the end of the day. It wasn't too bad in terms of gathering in my inner corner though. It did do it, but it wasn't awful. Morphe one is a bit more like dramatic, quite pigmented, but I felt like I had to sharpen this every single time that I used it because it just went blunt so fast. This one does wear a little bit better than the Flower Beauty one, but I did still feel like it got patchy by the end of the day. It didn't look like it didn't look as opaque as it did at the start when I applied it. This isn't bad, like it's decent, but I just feel like it could last a bit better, and like the issues I had with sharpening it are a little bit annoying. Like, it's annoying to have to sharpen something every single time that you use it, sometimes even multiple times while I was using it. I feel like I have cold pencils that I like better than this one, to be honest, so neither of these two have blown me away. But they're not complete duds either, but I don't think I'd repurchase any of them. Especially wouldn't repurchase something that literally lasted me like about 3 weeks before it like disappeared. I did also get these colourful eyeliners from Barry M. I have got some in my waterlines today, as you can see. I decided to do this sort of half and half look. These actually work really well. They're pigmented. I feel like a lot of colourful kohl eyeliners often don't show up very well in the waterline, but these all show up super good, super vibrant. And they don't fade too badly either. They work really well actually. They're pretty good. They're pretty decent. If you're into like a colourful waterline look, I'd give them a go because I think they do a pretty decent job. I mean, you don't necessarily have to use them in the waterlines. You could use them on the lash line or to do some fancy drawing on your eyes, whatever you wanted. But yeah, I was quite happy, quite pleasantly surprised with how good these were. Yeah, I really like these. I would give them a go if you're into colourful eye looks. I tried 3 mascaras in total. So I got the Maybelline Lash Sensational, which I have tried in the past. This was a repurchase for the One Brand Maybelline look I've done. I also got the Flower Beauty Warrior Princess mascara, and I got the No. 7 Velvet Lash mascara. So I've got the No. 7 one on today, so let me just zoom in on my lashes. What do you think? My camera does not want to focus, do you? Come on. There we go. So this mascara I think is pretty decent. I would say it's probably my least favourite out of all of these, just because I feel like the other two just pack a little bit more punch, have a little bit more volume. But as you can see, like, it does do a pretty decent job. Like, there's not really much I don't like about it. I just feel like the other mascaras they just have a little bit more like impact, a little bit more volume, but this does a decent job. I do feel like it does take quite a bit of time to build it up though. It's not a very like fast application with this one, but it's not a bad mascara, but I don't think I'd repurchase it just because I feel like I've found not just these mascaras but generally better mascaras that just pack a bit more punch, but it's not bad at all, as you can see. The Maybelline one, obviously I had tried this before, but it was literally like about 2-3 years ago, so I couldn't really remember how good it was. Obviously a lot of people rave about this. This is a lot of people's favourite mascaras, and I have to say I kind of get it. This is a really good mascara. I was pretty impressed when I tried it again, to be honest. It packs punch, it's got volume, it's not clumpy, it applies well, it separates your lashes out, but it just gives you like a little bit of a curve to it as well. Yeah, this is a really good mascara. 100% understand why people love it so much. It is really good. I feel like I have used a lot of it now. It's starting to get a little bit dry. I find mascaras do just tend to dry up pretty fast on me, but this is really good. If you can get it, I definitely would. Perfect mascara in my opinion. So the Flower Beauty one, I feel like when I first used it I wasn't that blown away with it, but this definitely improved a lot as it sort of dried out. Eventually it kind of got to the point where I really started to like it a lot, and it really just just gave me really good volume, really dramatic. I feel like if you get this and you're not super impressed the first time you use it, just like give it like a week or two, let it dry up, use it a few times, and eventually I feel like it gets really damn good. So I feel like I sort of regretted getting it at first because I wasn't really sure. I'd saw mixed reviews on it, but then after I left it for a while I was like, actually no, this is a good thing I got this, because this is actually pretty decent mascara. It really does, it does the thing, it does the volume, it does it all. So yeah, good few months on mascaras I think, because all of them are pretty good. Moving on to eyeshadow, so there was 3 palettes that I tried in total. So I got the Maybelline Nudes of New York palette, which, can you guess, was for my one brand Maybelline look. I got a palette from Sleek, so this is their Major Morphosis eyeshadow palette, which looks like this. It's got some neutrals, it's got some rainbows, it's got a lot of shimmers in it. And then I also got the Beauty Bay Nikkie Tutorials palette. I think I'll talk about the Nikkie Tutorials one first, because I'm just really confused about this one. I've got this palette on my eye today. I decided to do pink look and a blue look. Basically, I used a wet base of this. In fact, I used the Beauty Bay eyeshadow primer. Normally, I would never use a wet base. I would always set it down with powder after I use a primer or a concealer or whatever I was using as an eye base. But today I was like, you know what, let's give this a go. Loads of people use wet bases. Maybe they're onto something here. And I just found like the eyeshadow palette just performed so differently, and I feel like I just got way more pigmentation, and I do feel like the blending takes longer with a wet base, but it does blend better overall. It just takes a bit longer, because I feel like I was going to give this a bad review, but now using it today I feel like everything performed a lot better. Well, specifically the matte shades, I still have my issues with the shimmers even applying it this way. But the matte shades I just feel like performed so well compared to when I used it on a set base. So for example, this shade Ew here, it came out super pigmented today, and I actually managed to get it to blend, whereas every time I used it with a set base I just felt like it never blended at all, and the pigment just sort of disappeared whenever I'd go to blend it. I just did not get along with it at all, and I felt like that about a lot of the matte shades in this palette. So I was just like, is this a bad palette? I didn't want to say that because I know people love Nikkie Tutorials and I don't want to be mean about her palette, but so all of the looks that I took pictures of I did with a set base. So now I'm just really not sure what to say about this, because I feel like I need to redo all of these looks with a wet base. But anyway, let's just go through the looks that I took on my phone and we'll discuss further. So the first thing that I did here, I actually think I used the same shades that I've used in my crease today with this one, and I feel like in these pictures they just don't look, I feel like these pictures they don't look great, they don't look particularly blended well, the pigment, you know, there were issues with it, but obviously if I'd applied it with a wet base it would have gotten a better look. But I still feel like the matte shades over that cut crease, because obviously I would have done that over wet concealer anyway because it was a cut crease, they did just look kind of patchy, the yellow and the orange came out quite grainy looking, they just didn't work well over the wet concealer, those shades. So I don't know about that. That look was just kind of a bit of a mess, not gonna lie. Then I did this, which I just sort of had a neutral crease, and then I used the shimmer, then I used a blue shimmer, and I think some of the like grey silvery shimmers. And this one actually I think looks quite nice, it's decent. I did just fine with the shimmers. I just not the biggest fan of that formula of shimmer, because I just found them really difficult to apply. And they'd come out quite chunky, I'd feel, and like I felt like I'd have to swap back and forth between a finger and my brush, and it was just like, I don't know, I just feel the shimmers I'm not the biggest fan of in that palette. They just have a weird texture, and sometimes when I'd use them over a wet concealer they'd sort of separate. What I started doing was actually just kind of setting the concealer down when I did a cut crease, and then using the shimmers, I found that they came out slightly less separated when I did it that way, but over wet concealer I just feel like the shimmers really just didn't apply very well. They were definitely like pigmented and stuff, but I just also quite chunky though, and it was just I found it difficult. But I feel like the blue did come out like decently in the end, but I feel like if you looked quite close you would see that there is some separation there. Then I did a sort of yellow-red cut crease with the shimmers. I think at this point I'd sort of, you know, learned to set the cut crease down before applying the shimmers, so I think the shimmers looked a bit better, but I still just found it a bit of a ball ache to apply them, having to go back and forth between your finger, and it's hard to get a kind of intricate application with them. But it looks okay, but again I feel like that yellow probably would have applied better with a wet base, as I have learnt now. And then I've got this sort of bluey pinky look, which again I feel like that whole look would have kind of turned out better if I'd used a wet base with it, because I feel like the crease just looks a bit meh in these pictures. Then I did another sort of like neutral glam look. I kind of just kept this one pretty simple. It doesn't look too bad actually. I feel like it's a decent glam look. That's all of the pictures that I've got. I'm just really torn with this palette. I feel like I'm just having a very mixed experience with it. I'm not the biggest fan of the shimmers, if I'm honest. I just find them really difficult to apply. And I thought that I didn't like the matte shades that much either, but now I'm starting to think that maybe I do like the matte shades because I just needed a different way of applying them. And I have to say I am like quite happy with the looks that I got today. Again, I did find the shimmers a ball ache to apply, but once you get there, I feel like it turns out pretty good. Let me just close my eyes. What do you think? Does this eyeshadow look good? What do you think? I just really don't know. Do I like this palette? I'm not sure. I don't know. I kind of like it, I kind of don't like it. Even after playing around with it all this time, I'm like still confused about whether or not I actually like this or not. I'm pretty sure it was limited edition anyway. I know it did come back in stock like a month ago. I don't know if it's still in stock, but does it really matter what I say if you're not going to be able to get it soon anyway? Okay, so moving on to this sleek eyeshadow palette. I feel like overall I do quite like this eyeshadow palette. There are a few shades I had issues with, and I would generally prefer more mattes, like a bit more variety of the mattes. I feel like you've kind of just got your sort of like neutral matte shades up here, and then you've got this one matte blue. But other than that, there's not really much variety of the matte, so it is very shimmer heavy. So the first look that I've got, I did this sort of blue silvery halo eye. I did feel like I had a few issues with this matte blue. So when I used the matte blue in my first impressions, I quite liked it, but I felt like I had quite a few issues sort of like blending, particularly at the part where I actually did the halo eye. I just found some difficulties blending that and just getting the pigment to like build up the way I wanted it to. I think that all of the neutral transitions in this palette work perfectly fine. They're pigmented, they're decent, they're blendable, they do the job. The silver shimmer that I use also is absolutely stunning. This silver shimmer here, it is amazing. I love it. There's quite a few shimmers in here that I think are just so pigmented and gorgeous. There are some really nice shimmers in this. And then again, I did a sort of neutral crease, but I used the limey green and a bit of purple on the main lid. I actually think the look turned out pretty decently. This limey green shade, absolutely stunning, gorgeous, really like it. I love this sort of colour anyway. One of my favourite colours is green. Specifically that minty limey green, I really like that. Gorgeous, loved it. And then I did this look I did this look a few days ago, and I thought this turned out great. This is like such a simple glam look, but the shimmers just looked absolutely stunning. Like I used the silver and I used the gold, and this is just a whole look. I love it. I don't know if my pictures will do it justice, but this is like a go-to glam look. I think if you want to go to glam look, this palette has got it in it, definitely. I think that's all the pictures I got actually. I've not had as much time to play around with eyeshadow as I have in the past because obviously I've been working. Obviously I've been working and I don't really do like proper makeup when I'm at work. I just don't really have the time or the energy. I just do it on my days off generally. The matte shades work really well. The only one I had issues with was the blue, but I feel like it is workable if you just apply it a specific way. But I did have a few issues with the matte blue. But all of the shimmers I think are really stunning, particularly the silver shade here. That is gorgeous. Like, I love that shade so much. It's so good. It's a nice little palette. It's cute. I feel like it needs a bit more variety in it, definitely. But it's nice. I'm glad I tried it. I think it has got some really good shades in it. So this Maybelline one, the Nudes of New York, this was quite difficult to get in the UK. I did find it on a website. I think it's called Notino.com. I don't know if maybe it's a bit easier to get your hands on it now because I did buy this a few months ago now, obviously. It should be widely available in like America and a few other countries, I imagine. But it is a very sort of nude palette. You've got a good balance of mattes and shimmers in this one. This is just like your everyday glam palette. I feel like this is a perfect, this is perfect for like a soft glam look in my opinion. I feel like this is just really good at giving you like a natural, like diffused sort of glam look. I feel like this palette's really good for that. Okay, so the first look that I've got here is a sort of bronzy halo eye sort of thing. Pretty simple, pretty standard, but it worked really well. As you can see, all of the mattes are pigmented. The shimmer, the coppery shimmer looks really good. Not really got any complaints with that look. And then I did a very sort of smoky eye. Just wanted to make it quite dark, quite grungy. Put a little bit of gold shimmer over it as well. Again, I've not got anything to complain about with that. The smoky shades worked really well. Good pigmentation, good blendability. And then I did another very simple glam look. Again, I feel like it's a very specific sort of look that you can get of this. There's not really much creative, adventurous stuff you can do with this, but again, it's just another sort of, again, it's just a very like simple bit of sort of silvery shade in the inner corner, browns in the crease, that sort of thing, but it worked pretty good. I did do a gold sort of look in my One Brand Maybelline video as well. I used this shade here, so you can get a bit more of a vibrant gold look with it as well. It's a nice little palette, it's cute. I feel like I have neutral palettes that I do prefer over this one, but it's really not bad. There's not really much I can say about it that's bad, but I think it's just going to depend what sort of colours you want. That's the thing, I do feel like it could do with like a matte black or some really dark brown shades in it. I feel like it could go like a little bit deeper, definitely. Okay, so I've got a handful of lip products. The thing is, I've not really been wearing lip products that much, like at all. The only times I really wear them is like today, if I've got a day off work and I'm just doing a makeup look, so I might as well put a lip product on. But I've not been wearing them at work, obviously, because I have to wear masks at work. And if I like went out before we had a lockdown, I wouldn't really bother wearing a lipstick because we have to wear masks for like a lot of the night. You'd wear them if you're walking around, you could take it off if you were sitting down, but obviously because you're going back and forth between mask and not, I feel like wearing a lip product is just asking for some smudginess. So I just really haven't been wearing a lot of lip products generally unless I've got a day off. But a lot of products that I did pick up, so I got the Revolution Pout Bomb Plumping Lip Gloss. I think this is in the shade Cookie. Yes, it is. I got the Soap & Glory Sexy Mother Pucker, the Super Nude Matte shade. I got the MUA Matte Lipstick in the shade Virtue. I got the Revolution Matte Lipstick in the shade Raw. I have tried other shades of this before, but this is like a really pale nude. I also got the Maybelline Matte Lipstick in Purely Nude, which again is another super pale shade. Okay, so this Soap & Glory one, I think I was wearing it today, but it's sort of come off a bit because I've been drinking a load of orange juice. It smells amazing. It smells like vanilla. The shade is a very standard nude shade. I like the shade. I wouldn't really say it's a proper matte though, to be honest, which is annoying. It is a bit more like shiny. Not the longest wearing. Not the most pigmented either. It's nice, it works, but it's not really going to hold up very well, and it's just not really like, it's a barely there sort of lipstick. The MUA one, so this one I would say is a little bit more on the matte side. Again, it's not the most pigmented lipstick. The shade's like a little bit pinkier than what I go for. I would prefer it to be a bit more like a neutral or a brownier nude. It works okay. It's not bad considering how cheap it is, but also smells super nice. It's not bad, but I feel like it can look a little bit sort of streaky on the lips. It's not the most opaque. The Revolution one and the Maybelline one, these are both super nude shades. I kind of wanted them to layer. I do find the Maybelline one is just, again, it's one of those where it's described as matte, but it's not. It's really not matte, and again I feel like this would look quite streaky, quite patchy looking. I feel like the Revolution one worked better because I feel like it's a little bit more opaque, and obviously it was a bit more matte, which I already knew because I tried these in different shades. The Melt Cosmetics lipstick that I bought recently, I tried this layered over that, and I actually think it was a really nice combination. It worked really well. So I feel like this one is actually pretty good. I do feel like it looks a little bit dry on the lips. I feel like it works at what I wanted it to do, whereas I feel like the Maybelline one, I just don't really feel like it did work as well because the formula just wasn't really that good, to be honest. The Pout Bomb, I got this because I thought it'd be like a dupe for the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb, and I feel like it is. It does a really good job. I've not really been wearing lip glosses at all because I feel like that just doesn't go with a mask very well. So I've not really used this a lot, but I feel like when I have used it, it's good. It's got a bit of a tingle to it, which is quite nice. The shade works good. Not overly sticky and overly heavy and gloopy. So I feel like it is a pretty good dupe of the Gloss Bomb. And lastly, thank God, I want to stop talking, please help me. Morphe Continuous Setting Spray. I got this because everyone and their mum is like, this is the best setting spray ever. I like it, it's okay, but am I blown away by this? Absolutely not. I like this sort of aerosol format. That's pretty cool, and obviously it has lasted because I've had this for like 3 months now, and I've used it like almost every day I've done my makeup, I'm not gonna lie, so it does last pretty good. I feel like it does, you know, it does tone down the powderiness of your makeup. It has got a nice finish. I like it. It adds a bit of dew. It's good. I like it. I like it. I'd happily use it. I'd rather have it on than not have it on, 100%. I feel like people talk about this like it's like gold dust or something, and it's not quite that good. Like, it's good. I like it, but Has it transformed my makeup in any way? Absolutely not. Maybe I shouldn't have expected magic from a setting spray full stop, to be honest. Okay, so that's it. That's everything. I feel like I may have rushed that a little bit. I don't know if it was obvious that I was rushing that a bit, but I'm not gonna lie. I hate talking for prolonged periods of time, literally an hour. I'm looking at the time right now on my camera. It makes my throat very uncomfortable. The amount of orange juice I've consumed is ravenous. Anyway, we've got a whole bunch of new products now to throw into the next lot. So the next makeup recap review, updated review I'll do, it will be a November, December one, so that will probably be out like February, I would have thought. I love it when I can kind of get rid of these and like move on to the next lot and just play around with those for the next few months. It's always quite a good feeling, you know. That's all I gotta say in makeup today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.